as my heir, William now assumes the Scottish titles which have meant so much to me.
What started as a routine royal stay at Balmoral quickly spiralled into an unexpected storm inside the monarchy, as reports claim Prince William stepped into a position of firm control after a serious incident involving Prince Louis and a remark made by Camilla's grandchild. The situation, which was initially described as a quiet family gathering away from public attention, allegedly shifted into something far more intense and emotionally charged behind palace walls. What was meant to be peaceful time together reportedly turned into a moment that insiders say left the entire household shaken and uncertain about what comes next. As tensions continue to grow within royal circles, questions are now being raised about whether this incident marks a deeper power shift within the monarchy itself, with Prince William's response being viewed by some as unusually direct and firm for a private family matter. The big question now is what truly sparked this reaction, and whether things inside the palace are about to change even more dramatically. Some observers are now debating whether this entire situation is being amplified beyond reality, or if it reflects a genuine fracture within the royal family structure. Was Prince William right to step in so strongly after what happened to young Prince Louis? Or is the story being stretched by speculation and palace rumour chains? Opinions are now sharply divided, and the discussion continues to grow louder. The events reportedly began during what was supposed to be a calm royal retreat at Balmoral, a setting often associated with privacy, tradition, and carefully managed family time away from public pressure. At the start of the day, everything appeared normal, with family members engaging in quiet activities and spending time together in a controlled and peaceful environment. But behind that calm surface, insiders suggest that emotional tension was slowly building in ways that were not immediately visible to everyone present. According to reports, Prince Louis briefly wandered away from the main group during a quiet moment outdoors, something that in itself would not normally cause concern in such a familiar environment. It was during this short separation that Camilla's grandchild allegedly approached him, and what followed has been described by insiders as a deeply uncomfortable exchange filled with harsh and emotionally charged remarks. The comments were reportedly not limited to light teasing, but instead included personal and sensitive subjects connected to Prince Louis's immediate family, making the moment far more serious in tone than a simple childish disagreement. Even more troubling, the remarks allegedly touched on topics linked to Catherine, Princess of Wales, and references surrounding Princess Diana, which added a layer of emotional weight that intensified the situation significantly. Witnesses claimed the impact on Prince Louis was immediate and overwhelming, with the young prince becoming visibly upset within moments of the exchange unfolding. He reportedly broke into tears and ran back toward his mother for comfort, a reaction that insiders described as both sudden and emotionally intense, breaking the calm atmosphere instantly. While the incident itself was brief, those nearby reportedly felt the emotional shift ripple through the environment immediately, turning a peaceful setting into one filled with discomfort and shock. However, what caught the attention of palace insiders even more than the incident involving Prince Louis was the reaction from Catherine herself, which was described as unusually controlled and emotionally restrained. Rather than responding with immediate outward emotion, she was said to have frozen in place, maintaining a composed exterior that some interpreted as calm, but others saw as deeply intense and concerning in its silence. Observers described her expression as steady, cold, and tightly controlled, not showing obvious anger but instead projecting a quiet emotional force that made staff uneasy and uncertain about what she might do next. In that moment, some aides reportedly felt that something significant had shifted internally, as if an invisible boundary had been crossed that could not simply be ignored or brushed aside. What might have looked like a minor family dispute to outsiders was now being described within palace circles as a moment carrying far greater emotional and symbolic weight than expected. In environments like the royal household, where image, restraint, and protocol carry enormous importance, even a brief moment like this can leave lasting consequences that ripple far beyond the immediate event. As a result, attention quickly shifted from what was said to what would happen next behind closed doors, with speculation growing about possible private discussions taking place away from public view. Prince Louis reportedly ran to his mother after the incident, while Catherine remained outwardly quiet, a contrast that only added more curiosity and tension around the situation. Some now wonder whether her silence indicates that the matter is being taken more seriously behind the scenes than it appears on the surface, or whether she is simply choosing a more strategic approach to handling it. This leads into what insiders are calling a crucial private turning point between Catherine and Prince William, unfolding away from public attention and formal royal duties. According to palace sources, the conversation between the couple was not loud or confrontational, but instead deeply serious, emotionally charged, and filled with unspoken weight that lingered heavily in the atmosphere. Catherine reportedly raised strong concerns about what had happened at Balmoral, framing her reaction through the lens of past royal history and emotional protection for their children. She is said to have reminded William of the painful legacy surrounding Princess Diana, highlighting how emotional strain and public pressure once deeply affected the monarchy in ways that still echo today. Her message reportedly centered on one clear point: she would not allow history to repeat itself for their own children, especially Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Insiders claim her words carried powerful emotional force, not just as a royal figure, but as a mother deeply focused on protecting her children from similar emotional challenges. For William, the conversation reportedly triggered deeply personal reflections tied to his own childhood experiences and memories of family instability that once played out in the public eye. What may have initially been viewed as a small family issue reportedly began to feel much larger and more symbolic, with historical parallels becoming impossible to ignore. Sources suggest that William's perspective began to shift significantly during this exchange, as the emotional implications of the situation became harder to dismiss. The idea that his children could one day face similar emotional pressures inside the royal environment reportedly left a strong impact on him, changing how he viewed the situation entirely. This moment has been described by insiders as a turning point, where silence and avoidance no longer felt like viable options in dealing with the aftermath of the incident. Instead, a more structured and deliberate response reportedly began to take shape, influenced by both emotional protection and long-term concern for family stability. Following this shift in perspective, attention turned toward what might happen next within official royal structures and whether senior aides would become involved in addressing the situation. The following morning at Kensington Palace reportedly felt different from usual, with an unusually controlled and tense atmosphere replacing the normal rhythm of royal operations. According to insiders, senior staff were quietly summoned into closed-door meetings, with movements inside the palace becoming more restricted than usual. Some reports even suggest communication channels were carefully monitored, and certain staff members were temporarily asked to hand over devices during internal discussions. Legal advisors and senior protocol officials were also reportedly brought in, signaling that the situation was being treated with increased seriousness behind the scenes. Despite the lack of any public announcement, the internal environment was described as highly organized, tense, and focused, as if structured decisions were being prepared at a rapid pace. At one point, Prince William is said to have entered a key meeting carrying a detailed briefing folder outlining responses to the events at Balmoral. Sources claim the material inside focused less on emotion and more on structured evaluation, reviewing how certain ceremonial roles and public appearances linked to Camilla's extended family could be adjusted or reduced. Every potential avenue of public involvement was reportedly examined carefully, including invitations, ceremonial participation, and symbolic appearances. Over time, these considerations were said to shift toward removal or limitation, reflecting a systematic approach to controlling future visibility within royal settings. Some insiders later referred to this internal process as the erasure mandate, a phrase used to describe the scale and speed of the changes being discussed behind closed doors. What unsettled many within the palace was not visible anger or confrontation, but the calm, calculated nature of the decisions being considered. which carried a very different kind of intensity altogether. What stood out most to those watching closely was Prince William's unusually steady and controlled approach throughout the entire situation, which insiders say never once broke into emotion or visible frustration at any point. Instead, everything reportedly unfolded through calm direction, measured instruction, and carefully structured decisions that gave the entire response a much heavier sense of seriousness than expected. There were no raised voices, no public tension, and no dramatic reaction, only quiet authority that made the situation feel even more intense behind closed doors. For many within palace circles, this kind of calm delivery did not make the situation feel lighter, but instead made it feel more permanent, as if the decisions being made were not temporary reactions, but long-term shifts already in motion. Because of that controlled tone, insiders reportedly felt the entire process carried a sense of finality that was difficult to ignore, especially given the gravity of what had taken place at Balmoral. William is said to have taken the matter so seriously that he personally called in senior aides, laying out a detailed explanation of why immediate and structured action was being considered necessary. The discussion, according to reports, was not emotional or chaotic, but instead focused, precise, and highly organized, with each point carefully addressed one by one. But even with all of this happening behind closed doors, one major question continued to circulate within palace discussions. Would King Charles be directly involved before any final decision was locked in? Or, given the sensitivity of the situation, would William choose to move in a direction he believed was right, while still attempting to avoid placing additional emotional or institutional pressure on his father? That uncertainty alone added another layer of tension to an already sensitive situation, with insiders watching closely for how the balance between father and heir might unfold. What followed next reportedly surprised even seasoned palace observers, as it represented a noticeable departure from long-standing royal tradition in both timing and procedure. Rather than following the expected chain of consultation first, William's approach was described as direct, immediate, and unusually decisive in its execution. According to insiders, the most unexpected detail was that King Charles was not consulted prior to the action being taken, but instead informed afterward through formal written communication. Within the structure of the monarchy, where hierarchy and consultation are deeply embedded into tradition, this sequence of events stood out as highly unconventional. Normally, significant decisions of this nature are expected to move through careful discussion, approval stages, and internal alignment before anything is finalized. However, reports suggest that in this case, those traditional steps were bypassed in favor of immediate execution, followed only later by official notification. William is said to have sent a structured written explanation to his father outlining what had already been set in motion, leaving very little room for adjustment or reinterpretation. The tone of the communication was described as respectful and carefully worded, but the content itself reportedly made clear that the decision was already active and not open for debate. There was no suggestion of negotiation, no invitation for revision, and no indication that the outcome could still be altered once the message was delivered. For many courtiers observing this development, what stood out was not only the decision itself, but the firm and irreversible way in which it was presented. Behind the formal language, insiders described a quiet but unmistakable shift in how authority was being exercised within the royal structure. Although William remains the heir to the throne, this moment was seen by some as stepping beyond a purely preparatory role and into a more immediate form of influence. That interpretation reportedly unsettled parts of the institution, as it suggested a style of leadership that was active rather than waiting, present rather than deferred. Even though everything was handled with respect and formality, the absence of consultation changed how some within the palace interpreted the balance of decision-making power. In that quiet shift, observers felt they were witnessing something subtle but significant, not a public rupture, but a behind-the-scenes adjustment in how authority could be exercised. And while nothing was openly declared, the perception of change alone was enough to spark deeper discussion within royal circles about how future decisions might now be handled. William officially implemented a directive before informing his father in a respectful written format, but this sequence immediately raised questions about what was driving such urgency. Was it simply procedural confidence, or was there a deeper emotional factor influencing the speed and structure of the decision? Some insiders suggest the answer may lie in William's long-standing approach to parenting and emotional protection, particularly when it comes to his children, because beyond royal duty and institutional responsibility, there is another side to William that has shaped many of his choices over the years, a side focused not on tradition, but on emotional well-being, stability, and creating a different environment for the next generation of the royal family. From the beginning, William has often spoken about wanting to raise his children differently from how earlier royal generations were brought up. Rather than strict emotional restraint and silence, he has expressed a preference for openness, communication, and a more supportive home environment. He has emphasized that children should be able to express fear, sadness, joy, and confusion without feeling pressured to hide their emotions. This mindset marks a clear contrast from the older royal culture, which often emphasized discipline, composure, and emotional control above open expression. According to those close to him, this philosophy is not just public messaging, but something rooted in personal experience and reflection over many years. William's own childhood, shaped by intense public scrutiny and private emotional challenges, is believed to have strongly influenced this approach. The loss of Princess Diana during his teenage years, while the world watched closely, remains one of the most defining emotional experiences of his life. That period is widely believed to have shaped how he views emotional safety, family protection, and the importance of shielding children from public pressure. As a result, insiders say William has carried a quiet but firm determination to ensure his own children do not experience similar emotional strain. He has reportedly focused on building a home environment that feels stable, warm, and grounded despite the constant visibility of royal life. This is why, according to palace sources, the moment Prince Louis reportedly ran back in tears at Balmoral carried such emotional weight for him. It was not viewed as an isolated incident, but as something that symbolically touched on deeper fears about emotional exposure and childhood vulnerability. In that moment, the gap between his personal values as a father and the unfolding reality of the situation reportedly became impossible to ignore. That emotional clash is what many believe made the situation feel so deeply personal and difficult for him to set aside. Beyond William's known commitment to child protection and emotional well-being, attention has now turned toward how the situation involving Camilla's grandchild could have occurred in the first place. Questions are being raised about whether access within royal spaces has shifted in recent years, particularly regarding extended family involvement. Some observers are now asking whether Camilla's wider family circle has been given increased visibility and proximity to royal environments over time. If so, was this level of access officially intended, or did it develop gradually through informal tradition and social inclusion? At earlier stages, appearances by extended family members were described as occasional and carefully managed, often limited to specific events or formal gatherings. However, insiders suggest that over time, these appearances may have become more frequent and less distinct from official royal participation. To the public, these moments often appeared harmless and positive, presenting an image of unity and modern family closeness. But behind palace doors, some reportedly viewed the gradual shift with caution, noting how blurred lines can sometimes create confusion about roles and boundaries. What began as rare visibility is now being described by some insiders as a slow transition into something more embedded within royal presentation. And that growing presence is what has led to deeper questions about structure, access, and whether informal proximity may have crossed into something more sensitive than intended. The blurred boundary between family ties and official royal duty reportedly created growing tension among long-serving palace staff, who are used to strict control over the monarchy's public image. At the same time, King Charles's ongoing health concerns added another layer of uncertainty, making internal discussions feel more fragile and sensitive than usual. As attention shifted toward the future reign of Prince William, pressure inside royal circles reportedly increased, with more focus placed on leadership, roles, and long-term direction. In this environment, Even small family interactions were said to carry more weight as staff began interpreting ordinary moments with more caution and concern. According to insiders, the Balmoral incident did not create these tensions, but instead exposed pressure that had already been building quietly behind the scenes. It acted like a spark in a tightly controlled environment, bringing hidden issues suddenly into full view. Long before William issued any directive, Camilla's wider family had already been appearing more frequently within royal settings. Now questions are being raised about whether Camilla will accept William's decision or push back in defense of her family's role within royal life. There is also uncertainty over whether King Charles will ultimately support his wife or stand by his son during this situation. Inside what insiders describe as a palace rift, tension reportedly increased after William's actions became known. Queen Camilla is said to have reacted strongly, with staff noticing a sudden shift in atmosphere. Reports describe urgent private conversations and attempts to seek intervention from King Charles. Some insiders claim she believed the decision should not have been made without full royal agreement. However, King Charles is said to have chosen not to overrule Prince William. Sources suggest this may be due to both health challenges and ongoing family strain. More importantly, insiders believe he recognized that influence within the monarchy has been gradually shifting toward William and Catherine. Their growing public trust and central role have become increasingly important in shaping the monarchy's image. As this reality settled in, palace staff reportedly began adjusting quietly to the new balance of influence. Some started aligning more closely with the Wales household, watching where decisions were concentrating. This shift was not formal, but based on instinct and awareness of future direction. Camilla's wider circle, once seen as firmly established, reportedly began experiencing a decline in influence. Inside Buckingham Palace, courtiers sensed that a long-standing chapter of royal life may be slowly ending, not through public announcement, but through quiet internal changes and shifting loyalties. William's directive remaining in place has raised questions about his growing influence within the monarchy. Some observers believe it reflects how he may act in the future as king, more direct and decisive when boundaries are crossed. Over the years, William has been described as preparing for a more modern and hands-on style of leadership. Alongside Princess Catherine, he has helped shape a royal image focused on family values, emotional well-being, and public service. However, insiders also suggest he has a more protective and firm side when it comes to his family. In difficult situations, he is described as quiet, focused, and willing to make tough decisions. After the Balmoral incident, some reportedly saw early signs of this leadership style emerging. For them, it was no longer just a family issue, but a glimpse into future royal decision-making. Outside the palace, public reaction reportedly leaned towards sympathy for William, Catherine, and their children. Many people expressed emotional support and concern during public appearances and online discussions. Old images of Princess Diana with her sons were widely shared, adding emotional weight to the situation. For some, the story felt like history repeating itself in a new generation. However, insiders claim William did not soften his stance once the decision was made. The directive reportedly remained firm and unchanged. This sent a clear message about priorities within the monarchy moving forward. It suggested that child protection and emotional safety may now take precedence over tradition and internal ties. Even without official explanation, the message was widely understood. It hinted at a monarchy shaped more by boundaries, well-being, and protection than before. A quiet but significant shift in how the royal family may operate in the future. What do you think about William's directive? Was he right or did he go too far? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more updates on the unfolding royal developments.